Hello, everyone, and welcome today for our presentation by Dayle Hayes. She is an award-winning author, educator, and nutrition coach. In her writing and presentation, she brings a delightful blend of practicality and pizzazz to everyday nutrition advice. Her creativity and common sense have made her a sought-after speaker and workshop leader for professional and consumer groups across the country. She has won numerous awards and writes guest columns for major newspapers across the country. Her social media handle on Twitter, her blog, and Facebook page can be found at School Meals That Rock. As a parent, nutritionist, and member of the School Nutrition Association, Dayle is dedicated to improving school nutrition and environments. Thus, I am very pleased to present Dayle Hayes, who will present today's topic, comfortable cafeterias. Welcome, Dayle.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for the lovely introduction. I am delighted to be here. The most important thing to know about me is, first of all, if you want to follow anything that I do online, you can do that at School Meals That Rock. But secondly, is that although I'm very concerned about what gets served in cafeterias, I am even more concerned these days about how it gets served in school cafeterias. I don't think we've been paying enough attention to how food, with the atmosphere in a cafeteria, and how the wonderful food that's being prepared gets into children and becomes nutrition. You'll hear me talk a lot more about that in just a minute, but I will be bringing my experiences from school districts and consulting work all across the country. Oh, I'm trying to get this. There we go. I do always like to have a disclosure slide so you know who I work for and with. I'm a consultant to a variety of federal and state agencies. I also work with a number of producer groups for a variety of food groups. As you can see here, it basically includes anything that's on my plate. I serve on an advisory council for Kellogg's, and I do work for a couple of brands. However, for this webinar, the only thing that you need to know is that I want to express my thanks for allowing me to be here to Montana Team Nutrition. They have supported the work to make the materials that I'm going to be telling you about during this webinar, but also have been one of the real leaders in making cafeterias comfortable in Montana, and then sharing that information out across the country. I also want to thank Melinda from Peaceful Playgrounds. I have to say that she was really the inspiration for the work that I've done around comfortable cafeterias. I think that being comfortable in your cafeteria is just as important as having a peaceful playground. We need to have playgrounds where children feel comfortable to be active and to enjoy time with their peers. But we also need to have comfortable cafeterias where children can enjoy nutrition and also spend time with their peers. So this is a cafeteria in a school in Tampa, Florida that I visited, and perhaps one of the most comfortable cafeterias that I've ever been in. This is an IB school, International Baccalaureate School, and a magnet school in Tampa. So it does have some benefits, but I believe it had exactly what any school can do to make a cafeteria comfortable. You'll notice there are murals on the wall. You see there hangings from the ceiling to help with the sound issues. And those things are important, but I'm going to concentrate much more on what is actually going on around the tables and how the children are being supported in having a meal there. My topic today, what I'm going to cover with you, is really how pleasant and positive meal times at school can set the stage for better learning, better behavior, and improved health. Again, I'm not just interested in the nutrition and what kids get to eat. I'm really concerned about how that affects their learning in the classroom, how that affects their behavior throughout the school day. As many of you know, there were new nutrition standards from the 2010 Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. Those rolled out for lunch last year, and they're rolling out for breakfast this year. Bottom line, one of the things that they mean is really that for a lot of kids, there's going to be more food on their plate, more different kinds of food. And when they look at a salad bar like these young men in Lee County, Georgia, or even when they look at a serving line, that there are often more choices. And that has an impact on children's, students' ability to choose nutrition. This is from my friends at Team Nutrition in Iowa, and I think it really emphasizes the importance of those new nutrition standards. It's not just school lunch, it's much bigger than that. It's better nutrition, but again, it's what that nutrition does that I really want to focus on with you. I have a mantra. I use it in every presentation that I give, live or in a webinar, and that is that it's only nutrition when they eat or drink it. We have great new standards. Schools are putting out beautiful trays. This is from a friend of mine in Wyndham Raymond Schools in Maine. And by the way, this is not only a gorgeous looking plate, it tastes great, and those are mostly all local foods, including local beef and a local apple on the tray. But that beautiful meal is not nutrition. It's only nutrition when it gets into a child. And what you'll see here is something that I saw. I'm not going to name the school district because it really wasn't their fault. But I saw it at a school district in Idaho where obviously a lot of the wonderful foods that we'd like to get into kids were left sitting on the trash can. Food waste is something that concerns me a great deal. I know it concerns lots of folks. One of my other mantras is trash cans do not have nutritional requirements. There's no reason why we should be feeding them. All of that food there is something that we wanted to get into kids. That's the fuel for their learning during the day. So one of my goals is not only to help schools plan beautiful meals, but to really think about how can we make a difference in getting that food into kids as well. In today's webinar, then, what I'm going to do is, first of all, describe some of the behavioral and academic benefits of having positive, pleasant meal times in a comfortable cafeteria. I'm going to discuss the important role of school cafeterias in helping children develop positive eating habits for a lifetime. Many children eat in a school cafeteria once or twice a day, all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. So we have a real opportunity there to influence their eating behaviors, their nutrition knowledge, as well as their health. And then I'm going to share some tips and resources to make school meal times more pleasant for both students and staff. So I'm going to go through these slides and then leave about 10 minutes at the end. So if you have an opportunity and would like to ask a question, you can type that into the question box that is on the right-hand side of your computer. I will be able to see that and either answer it during the presentation or when we get to the end. So let's start with why you should care. Why you should care about having a comfortable cafeteria where students can have a positive experience is number one, because it impacts their learning. We all want children to be fit and well-nourished and ready to succeed. When the teacher asks something, we want them to raise their hands and say, I know that. And what we are learning from a great deal of research is that nutrition really impacts cognition. So in order to be able to learn, in order to be able to concentrate and focus, children need the nutrition that is provided in school cafeterias. But it isn't just their learning that is impacted, it's their behavior. Again, I think we all have the same goals, so that when teachers are teaching, students are paying attention, they're able to focus, concentrate, they're not wiggling around in their desks or bothering the other students around them. And nutrition has something to do with this as well. One high school student I visited with recently in one of my local high schools said, I come to school to eat breakfast because then I don't have to listen to my stomach growl all morning. When students are listening to their stomachs growl, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon, they're not able to listen to their teachers. And yes, having the nutrition that is provided at school breakfast and school lunch also enhances student health. But honestly, I think for schools, the most important things that we need to concentrate on is that a comfortable cafeteria and good nutrition will help kids, help improve children's learning and improve their behavior. So take a look with me for just a minute at this first grader in Bethel School District in Eugene, Oregon. She's done a fabulous job of picking out some wonderful foods. Again, I know this school district very well. There's a lot of local, fresh, delicious foods, including homemade pizza on that tray. But then I always ask folks to look at her teeth. Because for that child to get through all that food, it's going to take a little while. She's going to need some time to sit and eat. And if she is rushed or if the cafeteria isn't a comfortable place for her to eat, that food will end up in the trash instead of in her. And it's only nutrition when they eat or drink it. So what's the best schedule in terms of nutrition, and what's the best cafeteria atmosphere for these two wonderful young ladies? They were at Heritage Middle School in Meridian, Idaho, where I attended a wonderful kickoff event for a Fuel Up to Play 60 program. They're drinking a fresh homemade smoothie that they got there. But again, for kids in middle school, a cafeteria has to be a comfortable place for them to eat in order to get that nutrition into them. And I think particularly as children get older, there is opportunity for chaotic atmosphere in a cafeteria, for bullying, for some of the other things that truly get in the way of children getting the nutrition they need. I do lots of work in the whole arena of healthy school environments, not just in terms of what happens in the cafeteria, but what happens during the whole day. And I've really thought a great deal about what a schedule would look like for children to optimize their learning. And this is basically what I've come up with. I'm not going to talk about the physical activity pieces. I know that Melinda and Peaceful Playgrounds have just done a fabulous job with concentrating on what goes on at recess or what goes on when children are outside of school. I want particularly to talk about that breakfast and lunch time. So I'm a huge proponent of school breakfast. Although I'm really happy if kids eat breakfast at home, one of the things we know is that for many children in America, that's not a reality. So we need to have breakfast available at school for the children who need it, and lunch available. You see that I put some times there as well. I'm going to come back to the issue of timing, but these times that I have listed here are seat time, not time in the cafeteria, but time when students are actually sitting in the on the benches, in chairs, able to eat and focus on their meals. We have some background issues in our country which are really affecting and becoming even more important in terms of ensuring that cafeterias are a comfortable place to eat and that children have enough time to eat the meals we serve. And that's because we have hunger in our schools. We have a huge food insecurity problem, a meal gap in the United States. This is from Feeding America. You can go onto their website. You can look at any county in the United States and see how many children are living with food insecurity. My state of Montana is about with the national average of about 22 to 23% of children living in food insecure homes. That food insecurity has a huge impact on what goes on in schools. No Kid Hungry did this survey in 2012, and out of 1,000 K-8 public school teachers, 3 out of 5 said that kids regularly come to school hungry. I put this up especially because I want you to look at what the impact of food insecurity and hunger is in our schools. Children are unable to concentrate if they're hungry. That leads to poor academic performance and to headaches and stomach aches. If we happen to have any school nursing professionals on the call today, they would tell you that the most common reason why a child comes to the school nurse in the morning is a headache or stomach ache. And the primary reason for that is that they have not had breakfast and they're hungry. Food insecurity impacts what goes on in the classroom. In fact, we have more and more children in our country who are sadly too hungry to learn. And breakfast can change their lives. This is a very common thing, actually. Teachers, principals know about this and know the results of too hungry to learn. This was the 2013 survey by No Kid Hungry. 73% of teachers say they teach students who regularly come to school hungry. 87% of principals say they see hungry kids in their school at least once a week, and 90% of educators say breakfast is critical to academic achievement. So we know that these meals are important to provide, but we also need to recognize that it isn't just providing the meal, it's providing a comfortable and pleasant place for children to have that meal. Now, in terms of breakfast, I am a big fan of breakfast in the classroom, but whether breakfast is served in a cafeteria or it's served in a classroom, it needs to be a positive, pleasant atmosphere to make sure that we set the stage for better learning, better behavior, and improved health. One of the things I'm often asked, because I speak to a variety of audiences, from school nutrition professionals to school nurses, to school boards, superintendents, and principals. I'm often asked isn't it just the school nutrition program's responsibility? Isn't it just food service or the, quote, lunch ladies who should care about what's going on in the school cafeteria? Honestly, it's all of the people listed here should care about making sure that cafeterias are comfortable and students are able to get the advantages of the nutrition that's served there. So certainly it is the responsibility of school food service staff, but also administrators, teachers, aides, students, and parents. Why do I have coaches listed here? Well, if you're a coach and you want optimal athletic performance from your child, from your student athletes, it's absolutely important that they consume the meals that are provided at school. By the way, in my thinking, it really doesn't matter whether students are eating a meal that is purchased or provided by the school, either free, reduced, or paid, or whether they've brought a meal from home. In both of those cases, they need to have a kind of atmosphere and enough time to be able to eat it and to get the advantages of the nutrition. So what does it look like? What is it, how do I know when I walk into a cafeteria whether it is a comfortable place to eat? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I think every school has the opportunity to create and support this type of mealtime environment. You don't have to have a special kind of chair. You don't have to have seating of any kind. It can be an old cafeteria, a brand new cafeteria. I know there are challenges in what some people call cafeteriatoriums. In other words, it's the cafeteria, the auditorium, the gym. So there are challenges, but it really doesn't matter what the facility is like. We all have the opportunity to provide the kind of environment that students need. This is the cafeteria at Gallatin Gateway School in Montana, and this is where we filmed a video, which you can all download for free. It's on the Montana Team Nutrition site I'll tell you about later. But this is a school where they pay particular attention to the overall school environment. They definitely have a peaceful playground, but they also have a really comfortable cafeteria, and they really work hard to ensure that children have the opportunity to take advantage of all the wonderful food they serve there. It's not a fancy cafeteria. It's pretty small. You can see right there the serving line and the chef behind you. But their experience is one of the things that we brought to bear in the materials that Montana Team Nutrition produced, which include some of the slides I'm showing you today. So you will have access to all those materials for free. So what does a positive, pleasant mealtime environment look like? Well, it's one of the best parts of the school day. And I will tell you that when I travel around and talk to students and I look at their cafeteria and I say, what do you like about being here? That's what I hear. They have good food. It's a safe, welcoming atmosphere. And that tells kids that we value the importance of nutrition. But it's also a calm, comfortable tone, which allows students to socialize and to have conversations. And as a matter of fact, it's maybe one of the few places during a day where students are allowed to socialize and to have those conversations. But I think it's really important that it has an unrushed feeling, that there isn't the sense that students have to eat quickly and get out the door. I have been in cafeterias where students are still trying to eat off a tray as they're carrying that tray to a tray line or a trash can. That's not a positive situation. In fact, I've seen a lot of situations where cafeterias are not so pleasant. That may be a situation where students are pressured to eat certain foods or specific amounts. We know that doesn't work, and we know it creates an atmosphere where children then don't actually eat the things that they do like. Sometimes the supervising adults are not trained to support healthy eating. I've been in some cafeterias which, to be perfectly blunt, feel more like a prison atmosphere than a restaurant. I've seen places where there are buzzers and bells and lights going on and off because students are not allowed to talk. I think, again, just like having a peaceful playground, we can have a comfortable cafeteria by letting students know what our expectations are and by setting up a situation where they are respectful and able to enjoy mealtime. As I said, any meal that's eaten in a hurry is not a meal where a student is getting the nutrition they need. So my goal always to suggest to folks, and I assume because you're listening to this webinar, it's something you want to do, is to make that cafeteria a time for students to relax, to socialize, and to nourish their bodies and their minds, whether it's at breakfast to go into the classroom for the morning learning, or whether it's lunch to go in for the afternoon learning. It is a time to fill nutrient gaps, but also to refuel their brains. Meals at school are fuel for concentration and focus in the classroom. It's also a learning laboratory for healthy eating habits and acceptable mealtime behaviors. Just like we work on teaching children how to behave in a hallway or how to behave on the playground, we need to do that in a cafeteria. And a calm, comfortable cafeteria doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen by whistles and bells and lights going on and off. Like any other important aspect of a school, it requires teamwork and communications among all the people listed here. So when everybody understands what the expectations are for a cafeteria, then they can have a place where children like to spend time, like to eat, and get the benefits of the nutrition that's provided for them. This again is the cafeteria in Gallatin Gateway School. They actually have a picture of the mountains on the wall because this is one of those cafeterias where, unfortunately, even though they live in the midst of beautiful mountains, they don't have any windows, but they painted a beautiful mural on the wall here. I think what's important about this picture, though, is that it really does showcase the fact that students are sitting at the benches, even on the table towards the upper left-hand corner, you can see a teacher. This is a place where students and teachers sit and eat together. They talk to each other. They have conversations. And you walk in and you think, oh, this is like a cafe. This is like a place where I would like to sit and have a meal. Again, the schedule, the optimal schedule for student learning looks something like this. By the way, one of the things I often hear from administrators, principals, superintendents, or school board members is, I can't get any of our teachers to eat in the cafeteria because it's such an unpleasant place to eat. Well, honestly, if it's an unpleasant place for adults, it's an unpleasant place for children. When you make a cafeteria a place where an adult would enjoy eating breakfast or lunch, then you also have a place where a kid is going to get advantage of all the nutrition that's provided. These two beautiful pictures come from two different school districts. That's a school breakfast parfait in Utah, excuse me, Provo, Utah. And on the right-hand side, you see some of the grab and go lunch options available in a district near Houston, Texas, the Cypress Fairbanks district. I'm going to use this slide for two reasons. One is to showcase the really wonderful things that are happening in school meals across the country. That's what I feature on School Meals That Rock. And every school has the opportunity to provide meals which look this good and taste even better. But the thing I want to emphasize here is that students need breakfast in the morning in order to learn in the morning. We often hear that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and indeed it is important, but that's only fuel for morning. Children need to eat regularly in order to have regular fuel for learning, and they need to have lunch, beautiful lunch like this, but lunch that they have time to eat and enjoy in order to fuel afternoon learning. So what I'd like to do now is take the next few minutes to talk to you about some of the best practices for comfortable cafeterias. Again, if you have a question, please type it into the question box and I will answer it. I'm going to spend probably the next 15-20 minutes going through these best practices and then open it up for questions. Also, remember that at the end, I'll be giving you a link to the information online from Montana Team Nutrition, where you can download slides, the resources that I'm going to talk about as well. So all of this is available to you at no charge. Perhaps the most important practice for having a comfortable cafeteria is to have recess before lunch. Why? Well, because recess before lunch does a number of things. And again, this is from research from pilot studies in several states, including Montana, and research that we've conducted here. Recess before lunch improves cafeteria atmosphere because students are more relaxed and focused. It leads to less supervision being necessary in the cafeteria because students have improved behavior, and fewer classroom discipline issues. In other words, when you have recess and then lunch and then children go back to the classroom, they are calmer when they return. It does some other really important things. It increases the classroom time on task because when you do recess and then lunch and then go back to the classroom, students are ready to learn. They haven't come running off the playground sort of hot and sweaty. It also increases milk, vegetable, and entree consumption. So when kids have recess first and then they have lunch, they eat more, there's less plate waste and less trash. We see less of that trash can that I showed you in the beginning with food piled up on it. And some of the people who are the most in favor of recess before lunch are custodians because it does reduce trash to such a degree. But it also means that kids are getting more nutrients into them, and because they drink more milk and now water is available in cafeterias as well, it improves their fluid intake. And you've probably heard how important both nutrients and fluids are for children's learning and their concentration. It also decreases the number of nurse visits after lunch, because one of the things that happens when kids have lunch and then recess is many of them eat too fast, they run around outside, and then they end up getting a tummy ache. This whole business of recess before lunch is, as I said, one that has been confirmed in a number of pilot tests across the country. So we've done them in Montana, they've done them in Arizona, and this is actually reports from a pilot tests in 26 schools in Florida. And again, they found exactly the same things. Number one, students eat and drink more at lunch when they have recess first. Afternoon behavior is improved. Wellness is improved. And again, the biggest concern for educators and administrators is that teachers gain 5 to 6 minutes of instruction time each day. So in summary, from recess before lunch, the students are attentive, happier, and healthy. Excuse me. When you download the slides, which I will make available to Peaceful Playgrounds, you'll see that the resource for this is listed right there on the bottom of the slide. It's important to recognize that there is no research basis for having recess after lunch. In fact, what I hear from most folks in schools is it's just we've always done it that way. So there's nothing to support recess after lunch and everything to support recess before lunch. I know that I hear from a lot of folks, oh, we can't do it because we don't know what to do about hand washing, or we don't know what to do with student coats. Trust me, all of those issues come up when you have recess after lunch as well, and they're all easy to figure out solutions for. In fact, from Montana Team Nutrition, available at no cost to you, we have a complete guide for recess before lunch and a guide to success with answers to those questions. I also know that Peaceful Playgrounds has been a big supporter of recess before lunch and has information available. So the second best practice is that children need an adequate time to eat lunch. I want to emphasize that 15 to 20 minutes is necessary of seat time, not cafeteria time. Those are two very different things. Because if we have a 15 to 20 minutes in the cafeteria, students may spend 5, 10, even more minutes of that waiting in line, waiting to be served, waiting to get their food. It's pretty common knowledge in cafeterias across the country that students feel rushed at lunch. And one of the things that this article in USA Today explored was that sometimes when students feel rushed and have a lack of time, they actually overeat because they eat too fast. You may have experienced that yourself. When children are able to eat at a more leisurely pace, they're more able to eat normally, eat in response to their hunger, and to get the nutrition they need. The other thing that is important to me, I'm going to just spend a little bit of time here on, is having a mealtime philosophy. A mealtime philosophy is basically just saying this is how we approach eating in our cafeteria. It's a basis for training cafeteria aides. It really does what we want to do in classrooms and on playgrounds, and that's to provide simple, direct, easy to follow, consistent messaging. So it helps children develop lifelong skills for a healthy relationship with food. I recently ate in the cafeteria in an unnamed elementary school in an unnamed city and state where there was no philosophy, and I was sitting with another adult at a table, and probably during the time we ate, 3 to 4 adults who were aides in the cafeteria came by, talked to the students around us, and they gave completely different messaging about how kids were supposed to eat, whether they had to try something, whether they were supposed to be talking or not talking. If I had been a first grader, and that's who we were sitting with, I just would have been completely confused about the expectations. In comfortable cafeterias, what we have used is the Ellen Satter approach to eating. Really, she's a registered dietitian and a social worker, one of the premier experts in child nutrition, and she really focuses on how children eat and what will enable them to eat better. They eat better when they're not pressured. But the other thing we have to recognize, and anyone who's on the line who's a parent will recognize, that children eat unpredictably, that they tend to waste food anyway, and that they're leery or skeptical about trying new foods. So we also need to recognize, and I've already alluded to this, that children will naturally stop eating and drinking when they're full if they have enough time to eat rather than if they feel pressured. Again, having a cafeteria where they feel a time pressure is not the optimal environment for children to eat. They also eat differently than adults in that they're cautious about new foods and new people cooking it. So, especially in preschool and early elementary, getting used to the fact that somebody else is cooking your food and you don't exactly know how they did it is something that we need to help kids feel comfortable with. Also, they learn by repeated exposure. This morning, I was just talking to some folks about introducing Greek yogurt in schools. Well, the first time students see Greek yogurt, they may not be interested in it, but repeated exposure, and especially if they have supportive adults present and it's a pleasant setting and people are talking to them about it, they are very likely to try new foods. They like choices. They want to feel safe with the food on their tray, not scared that somebody's going to try to force them to eat it. And they listen and respond to their own hunger and satiety cues. They need plenty of time to do that. Remember back to the little girl I showed you from Eugene, Oregon, with the beautiful plate of fruits and vegetables and pizza? She's going to need at least 15 to 20 minutes to eat and enjoy that food. Actually, one of the things that I often tell people is that when you're in kindergarten, first, second grade, it practically takes you 5 minutes just to get the milk open. So we really need to think about designing not only serving lines, but cafeterias in getting that food into kids. Kids do eat with their eyes first. We all do. And they are most interested in food that is appealing to them. But they also need limits and guidance on how to respectfully say no. One of the things that the Gallatin Gateway Cafeteria does is have a very precise phrase that children are taught when they can say no thank you to a food they're not ready to eat yet. And they like to eat and socialize with their friends. Bottom line, really, in terms of a division of responsibility in feeding, and this is Ellen Satter's approach, it's good at home, it works at school. Adults decide the what, the when, and the where of feeding, and children decide whether they will choose to eat the foods that are offered and how much to eat. So it's really the adult's responsibility to set up the environment, to make sure that it's comfortable, to make sure the food is appealing, and then to let children sit down and make their own decisions about how to eat it. I love this picture. It's actually for a snack time activity at a Natchez Middle School in Washington, the state of Washington. But it's the joy of the kids here who are working with a program called Fuel Up to Play 60. It's their excitement about the food. But also notice what the food looks like. It's beautiful, it's colorful, it's clean, it's laid out in an attractive manner for snacks. So to me, this is kind of the gold standard for how we want food to look and how excited we want children to be about coming into a cafeteria. Yes, the school nutrition folks in your schools really do have a very important role. They are responsible for providing eye-appealing, tasteful, colorful foods, and with your help, you being administrators, principals, superintendents, teachers, to make sure that that's a pleasant environment. And again, that it's adults who decide what foods are served, when they're served, timing of meals, and where they're served. I want to come back to timing for 1 minute because I also realize that not only is it that some children don't have time to eat in schools, it's that some schools are serving lunches really early in the day and also really late in the day because of just not having room to effectively feed children in a cafeteria. I think that's something that a district or a building really needs to take a very serious look at and see if there are other alternatives. If the cafeterias are so small, is there ability to use carts or kiosks or some other ways of feeding children so that you're not starting lunch at 9:30 in the morning or serving it as late as 1:30 in the afternoon. Neither of those situations is appropriate for children. But mostly customers, and I do see school nutrition, school cafeterias as serving customers. They need to feel safe, welcomed, and valued. And they need to have adults who help model and teach appropriate behaviors. Before I wrap up here, I want to just share a few phrases that I think can be very helpful in school cafeterias. Again, rather than sort of marching around with a kind of prison mentality and saying things like finish your milk or you didn't eat enough of your lunch, you can train aides and other people in the cafeteria to ask pleasantly, are you still thirsty? Have you finished with your milk? You know, that's something that helps build really strong bones. We know that children respond to nutrition messages and respond to adults asking them things about their food, especially if it's done with a smile on your face. So asking them if they got enough to eat, if they're finished, and even, you know, coming down to the line when you know kids have to move out of the cafeteria, not to sort of say in a very dramatic way, hurry up, but say, you know, we only have 5 more minutes to enjoy your lunch. Or as they do in Gallatin Gateway, that if you're still hungry, you have just 5 minutes more to fill up your tummies. So again, thinking about the phrases and the way that we approach eating in cafeterias makes a big difference. Things not to do in a cafeteria or actually at home as well are to force children to eat a minimum amount of food or drink. When we try to force, bribe, or pressure children to try a new food item, they actually are less likely to try it. It's also important not to take it personally. If a student dislikes something or doesn't want to take it, again, children take a number of exposures to come to terms with a new food. Also, we need to do everything we can to support children listening to their internal cues rather than overriding them. The last thing that I want to just touch on as a best practice in a cafeteria is that adults eating with children makes the biggest difference in the world. I've thought about this recently a lot, and I said, you know, really, whoever imagined that it would work well to turn 100, 150, however many children loose in a room without adults and expect them to eat, to have good table manners, to know how to socialize with each other. Children in most cases are eating with adults in other settings in their days, and the more we can have administrators, superintendents, principals, teachers, aides, parents, grandparents, even school board members, the more we can create opportunities where all those folks feel comfortable in a cafeteria, the more we provide an atmosphere in which children are likely to be eating well and getting the fuel they need. Actually, I just want to very briefly tell you about a school in Texas that started a program of lunch con las abuelas, so lunch with the grandmothers. In other words, they invited grandmothers to come in and sit at a couple of special tables and talk to children during the meal. What they found out is that the grandmothers, las abuelas, were so popular that they had to recruit more grandmothers to come in and sit at the table. You know, many young children are starved for attention, so having a caring adult who sits and eats with them is something that can be enormously helpful. All adults in the cafeteria have an important role. Again, that's to help the customers there feel safe, welcome, and valued, to model and to teach respectful manners and social skills, eating etiquette. children need help with all those kinds of things. And a school cafeteria is a wonderful place to do that. Some schools have even gone to the point to the end of having a sort of fine dining experience once a week or once a month, to use tablecloths and to have adults and children sit together and practice table manners that they might have discussed or learned even in the classroom. There's just so many things that we can do. And the best news about all of the best practices I just went over with you is that none of them cost a thing. They're all cost neutral. Recess before lunch is just switching your schedule. Allowing enough time to eat is, again, just something that takes a little creativity in terms of scheduling and saying this is important to us. And the mealtime philosophy, the video, the information that I mentioned is all available at no cost on the Montana Team Nutrition website. This is the rather long URL at the top, but honestly, if you just Google Montana Team Nutrition, this page will come up. You'll see there's a variety of information available, but if you look over on the menu on the left-hand side in gray, you'll see pleasant, positive meal times. All the things that I've talked about today, the video, the poster, tips for training staff is all available for free for download there. I really, really want to recommend the video that we produced. It features Dr. Kim Dubrucker, who's the principal at Gallatin Gateway School, but it also features staff and students and parents, everybody talking about how in this school cafeteria, which was not the ideal building, which with no extra funds available to them, really created an atmosphere where children are comfortable and where they get the fuel that they need to do well in the classroom. So I really appreciate the time that you've taken out of your day to join us or to listen to the webinar afterwards, because I know it will be made available via the Peaceful Playgrounds website. But really think about what a comfortable cafeteria might mean for your school and how much that would benefit students. This was taken on a recent visit to Riverside Middle School in Billings, Montana, where I was actually there, and I witnessed kids being kids. I mean, these are middle schoolers, tweens, and they were all behaving really well in the cafeteria. There were adults sitting around with them, but they were talking to each other and socializing, and this happened to be breakfast. They were enjoying their breakfast and then spending time together. My goal always in talking about any issue in schools is to really figure out how we can help kids eat and move properly so that they have strong bodies and smart brains. And that comes both from having peaceful playgrounds and opportunities to be physically active, but also to having comfortable cafeterias so that when they go back into the classroom, their brain and their behavior are exactly where they need to be in order to be successful. I haven't seen any questions come up. I will certainly give you a minute or two if you would like to type any in there. But I also just want to remind you that if you would like to follow any of the things that I do, and particularly if you're interested in sort of the whole meal quality issues, those beautiful meals that I showed previously, you can find those on Facebook at School Meals That Rock. I'm on Twitter, I have a blog, and also on Pinterest now as well. So my goal with all of those things is really just to showcase how wonderful, what wonderful changes we've had in school cafeterias. That includes the food that we serve. It also includes the atmosphere that we serve it in. My goal, again, always is to think about a school cafeteria like our favorite cafe, someplace where we'd like to go and sit and eat and have good food and have good conversations with the other folks who are there. In terms of students, it is a place where they can go, they can have the time to socialize, but most importantly, they can have the opportunity to eat and enjoy the food that will fuel their performance in the classroom. So it looks like we can wrap things up at this point. There being no questions in the box, I just want to thank you again for your time and attention and hope that you have a great day.
Dayle, and everyone, this is Melinda. Thank you so much. This was an outstanding presentation, and I know I learned a great deal. I also would like to thank the Team Nutrition Network in Montana because they co-sponsored this webinar for us today. So again, thank you to them, not only for co-sponsoring this, but also for the outstanding work that they're doing and the leadership role that they play in issues around lunchtime and improving school lunches and the recess before lunch leadership that they've shown, and now this notion of the comfortable cafeterias. So again, Dayle, thank you so much for the wonderful advice that you've shared with us. I know I've learned a great deal. See if we have any questions. Carrie, can you see any questions from your end? Are you there, Carrie?
This is Dayle. Again, thank you, Melinda, for being so supportive of many of these concepts and also especially for your support of recess before lunch. I don't see any questions up on my screen, so.
No, I just have a question. Someone, Michelle, would like to know when the PowerPoint slides, and I think we mentioned that they will be posted most likely next week. Is that correct, Melinda?
Yes, or Dayle, are they to download them from the Montana network site?
We'll do both of those, Melinda, on the Montana Team Nutrition site, the video that I described, as well as a set of PowerPoint slides. Not all the ones I used today, but a lot of the ones will be up there. I will be sending you, Melinda, a copy of my slides, the PDF, and you can feel free to post those and share them when you have the video recording available for people on peaceful playgrounds. And
That's
again,
one. That's
I just
wonderful. Thank you. And we will make sure that the attendees get a copy of the PDF.
I
All
just
right.
wanted to thank you one more time for allowing me to do this, and also honestly for being the inspiration. It was seeing a lot of your information and thinking about how critical a peaceful playground is that made me really focus in on a comfortable cafeteria as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this today.
Wonderful. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie.
And I will just say goodbye for everybody. For in the behalf of Peaceful Playgrounds, thank you so much for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Bye.